Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live, sort of. And today we actually are live because
Hey.
Facebook worked. Woohoo! So we have such an amazing guest today, and I want to just say that I came across Tiffany Odonnell a number of years ago, just in looking for women's organizations that I could kind of see what they were doing and had that empowering vibe and everything else. And boy, are you guys superstars. Tiffany leads the Women Lead Change organization. And you guys have just exploded over the last number of years with conferences and with programs and all sorts of stuff. So you have your own personal journey, and there's a reset, rise, and reveal and all of that. And there's just a lot to talk about. So welcome, Tiffany. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I think my calico is going to join the conversation. You might
That
hear
works.
her in the background. Welcome to this brave new world we live in. Dogs and cats and humans living together online.
Good times.
It is.
Yeah.
It's all good time. So I'd like to get a little bit of background because we talked a little bit about through our emails about how you initially started. You were in journalism and television journalism.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Boy, was that
I know.
a telling
Don't
thing.
ask me if I miss it, because I've gotten less polite. I used to give like a nice pause and say, "Oh yeah, that was a great career." Now it's like, heck no. I was about to get colorful. Heck no.
Heck no.
Great, great experience, and yeah, moving on to a new journey.
Well, for when we put this up as a podcast, Tiffany just made a face that you might have to go back and watch the video just to see that. So clearly, while that must have been a very exciting time, it was not without its challenges.
No.
How long were you in that world?
So 22 years. I mean,
Wow.
pretty established career as a television news anchor in multiple markets, and most recently landed in my home state of Iowa to raise our kids. You know, it was kind of a great opportunity to be a main anchor. It was a CBS and Fox affiliate, able to raise my family while being in that business, which, in larger markets can be a challenge. So I was very fortunate to be able to extend my lifespan in that career for that long. But yeah, I was a volunteer with Women Lead Change. I was an attendee to their events. That's how I got to know them.
So how long has that organization in and of itself been in existence? When was the germination of that? When did that start?
Yeah, that actually, it was founded in 2007, and really just out of a pure need, like so many of these organizations have been founded for leadership development. The CEO of University of Iowa Healthcare at the time was a woman and was looking to develop her current and emerging female leaders, and wondered what was out there, and they couldn't find anything. And so she just put together a group of friends. They call it the Friends and Family Conference. They thought they'd have 300, they had 500, and there you have it. It really spoke to the need for professional leadership development for our women.
Yeah, I think one of the things that speaks to me about that is when you see that there's something, either a need that needs to be filled, and very often that originates when it's something that you're looking for that you can't find. And then you kind of create that need. Like Kristen and I, this whole Brilliantly Resilient thing, we were both in a place where, gosh, we wish we had known a lot of the stuff that we now know back when we were experiencing those challenges. So we kind of thought, well, we know now, so maybe we can help other people know, so that we can, so you can move people forward. So I love that organization was built from this place of, hey, I'm not seeing this, so let's make it.
Exactly. And hats off to you for doing that too. There's a lot of paying it forward, a lot of wishing we had somebody telling us. So we pay it forward. So hats off to you too.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they say, what do they say? Write the book you wish you could have read. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you do it, like I did, you give heart attacks to all your English teachers around the country. People were like, she did what?
You wrote a book?
Yeah, I was always the one that said, can I just give a speech? Can we just sit down and talk? Do I have to write this whole thesis paper? Isn't there other things?
Did you ever think you'd be writing a book though? I mean, as surprised as you think they are, I bet you were surprised too.
I'm telling you, I was like, absolutely not. I mean, on the topic of raising blind kids, I'm like, when I started, like I met all these look, I kind of cheated a little. I just took all the people I met that were rock stars and put them in a book. Because quite frankly, even though I was about to hit publish, I'm like, I was yelling at my boys. I'm like, make sure you keep your act together, because now I'm writing a book about raising them the right way.
No pressure. Don't screw up, kids.
Try not
no
to
pressure.
screw up. Yeah. Yeah. Try not to
driving
screw up.
blind and crashing. No, they're good. I just took everybody else's stories because that was the information that I wish somebody handed me, like Mary Fran said. And then it just, and I, someone actually said to me, you really need to like take the Philly out of it and make the words a little bigger and more interesting. And I'm like, who wants to read that?
I don't think so. I'm so glad. I hope you didn't listen.
No, because I thought
He
if I
doesn't
was
listen.
sitting there-
No,
I don't.
That's not one of her qualities. She
Wait
does
a
not
minute. I
listen.
listened like 10 years later. I go, oh, I get it now.
Good for you.
Okay, so let's get back to how so then you were attending these conferences.
So yeah, I'm an attendee and a volunteer, and was working with their CEO and trying to diversify some of what they did beyond conferences. And of course it was, webcasting is what they were looking at. So I came in as the anchor and moderator for a few things. And honestly, I was moderating a conversation with Martha Stewart at one of their events.
Wow.
That was interesting. Yeah. This other gal was supposed to moderate the conversation, and she got busy. Imagine that. So Diane, Diane Ramsey, the CEO, I hadn't met her in person yet, but I'd already tried to get some free tickets to the conference because my station wouldn't pay for me to go. So she already knew my name. And so she called me and said, hey, are you available to do this conversation with Martha? And needless to say, I cleared my calendar.
Yes, I am.
This is clear during that conversation with Martha, though. And this is why I say I'm actually a poster child for what we do. During that conversation, she talked about writing her first cookbook, that entertaining cookbook. You've seen it. It's, the blue cookbook, Entertaining by Martha Stewart. She was 42 years old when she wrote that book.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. And I think I was probably 43 at the time of this interview. So I'm looking at her thinking, okay, this is somebody who reinvented herself and created a lifestyle industry. I mean, you can argue she's kind of the one who started this industry at 42. So as I'm sitting there, very stable, content, not stimulated. I mean, work was very rote at that point. I thought it was just sort of my lot in life, and I was fine with that. I mean, it was a great career, but I wasn't jazzed about it. I wasn't getting what I used to get out of it. So it really opened my eyes to, a new paradigm. I mean, all of a sudden I started noticing people who had re-careered like that.
Yeah.
And so my eyes were open to new opportunities, though I still was under contract and had no plans, to leave my specific job in TV yet. But then continued to volunteer. And then they were talking about a succession plan for that CEO. She'd been there 10 years and they wanted to bring in somebody. So I worked as a chief operating officer under her for 2 years, which was such a gift. Say the University of Diane Ramsey. If you know Diane, you need to know her, but you would understand what I made, best education ever. And then made that transition into the CEO position in 2017. So really,
cool.
She was the one who said to me, you're going to feel like you're jumping off a cliff. I mean, I'm leaving an established career to go to a nonprofit.
Yeah.
You're going to feel like you're jumping off a cliff, but it's really just a curb. And I'll tell you, truer words were never spoken.
Oh, I love that. That's just a curb.
It's just a curb. And I think, I'm sure you've seen this, and I know your listeners may have had this experience. Skills are so transferable that you just don't even know. Do something for 20 years. I don't care what it is. You're learning stuff along the way. So, if I talk about anything, it's about, kind of trying to look that fear right in the face, which is what I turn this thing down, which breaks my heart when I think about what an amazing job I have. I feel like everything I've done in my life led me to this spot, but I said no initially because I'd never been a CEO. I mean, I was a news anchor and reporter. What made me think, or what made them think I could do that? And thankfully, through some conversations, I was able to come to my senses and say, you know what, we'll try it out. We'll see what happens. And there you have it.
I think we lose sight of the fact that we've never been an anything before we first try it. You
That's
know,
a
like
great perspective.
you were never a news anchor before you tried
No.
that. You know, we were never an anything. But when we go and we have either that career or that path or whatever, and we've been at it for a while, isn't it strange how it defines us as that? And for some reason closes the doors to other things. But boy, did you hit on one of our key things when you talked about transferable skills. We talk about that
Yeah.
all the time in terms of that being able to rise and that resilience place.
Yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes you have to be in it to understand how that works. But, I will tell you, it surprises me every day how much I learned, in that industry that is so different than the one that I'm in right now. But yeah, I mean, I think
we tend to think things too are specific to a certain industry, when in fact, I think the majority of the skills that we learn are not, because they're more about things like organization and learning how to read people in situations. Like there are a lot of those sort of intangible skills that just apply across the board. And once we get ourselves out of that defining ourselves as something, then we can move them to other places.
that's the trick. That's really
Yeah.
the trick. And I feel like our conferences, we do more than annual conferences anymore, but that was really the biggest role for them, was to make people with interesting experiences and phenomenal lives accessible. A lot of times when they're in the room, you can see it. If you can see it, you can be it. And I always felt like, certainly in the middle of the country, we don't always have access to these folks. So it's really one of our, hallmarks are the people that we're able to bring to our own backyard, just to kind of see they are just like us. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. And it really does free you up and can shift paradigms in that way.
I think, and I'm going to put this to you as a question, but do you feel like, given this time period that we're living in, because like I said, Kristen and I, when we started this thing a few months ago, this was all, we had this great big plan, and we were going to do it this way. And, we were going to do a show, but it was going to be down the road because it was going to be pretty and it was going to be this and that and the other thing. And we kind of just jumped in, because what choice did anyone have? But do you feel like that's somewhat of an equalizer at this point for people? It's almost like there aren't any rules, so just try it and see if it works.
Exactly right. And I'm so glad that you've picked up on that too, because, for someone like me who can be afraid of failure, just being honest and owning that, this has been very liberating. A great example is that, our Super Bowl every year is a conference we hold in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and it's supposed to be 2 days. It's the 13th year for it. I mean, 7 keynotes. It is jam-packed. It's our Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And then we find out we can't have it. So we go virtual. We go all virtual. We turn the bus around in less than 3 weeks, which was a feat in and of itself.
I can't imagine. Wow.
But the virtual conference is something we have talked about doing for years.
Yeah.
And this was the opportunity to try it out and know that there was so much grace. There is so much grace. There is such a desire and a gratitude, frankly, to try new things. And I felt that. I felt that in spades. And so to hear you say, this sort of prompted you to jump in, and knowing some of it would work, some of it might not, but you were going to be okay with that, and that your listeners would be okay with that. I think that is one of the gifts of this season. If we can find any gifts here, I would definitely say, there is innovation happening, there are mistakes happening, and there are victories happening, all because we're willing to try stuff out.
Yeah, I love it. I love that everybody is on this. And it doesn't work. And if your hair looks like mine, so does everybody else's. Things just fall out, and who cares? No one else has good hair.
And then the rest of us are looking at you going, saying, how do I get hair like that? I love how that just sort of flows down, cascades down her shoulder.
Well, I'm always in hats now, because it's just crazy, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm always in my Phillies and my Eagles. And then people are sending me messages. Hey, I haven't seen the Eagles hat in a while. Hey, is that hilarious? I'm like,
how do I get one of those? I want one of those. That Kristen, she's such a trendsetter. I want her hat.
My mom's like, really? With the hats again? Really?
Having our moms
my
watch, I'm
gosh.
never sure that's a good idea.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
fortunately, my mom can't figure it out. So that's I'm one of the lucky ones there. Kristen's mom's got it down, and she always has advice for us, but my mom can't figure it out. So
Or she'll
and
call
I'm
me.
not helping
She'll
her.
go, it's not, I can't hear you perfectly. She'll call. I'm like, I'm kind of in the
While
middle
we're
of the show.
on the air.
She's so funny.
That's the best. That
But
is
anyway,
the best.
good time to that's how we've been telling everybody, just try. Who cares?
Just
Everybody's
try.
like, fail, whatever. And everyone, and this actually is a good segue into what I really want to dive in with you is the empathy factor.
Oh yes, let's get into that.
Yeah.
There's so many people, I keep telling my friends, just do it, because this is a time when people are so empathetic to each other. They're just happy that you get out there and try something and you know, whatever. But let's dive into empathy being such a huge piece of resilience. I love your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. It's just, honestly, in the last 2 weeks or so, we're starting to hear our organizational partners wanting to bring people back to work, and our, you know, CEOs and leaders are really preaching resilience, and they have been, you know, throughout this, obviously, how we need to be resilient and how important that is for all of our well-being. But as we begin to come back, it occurred to me that, you know, you really can't have resilience on its own. Like, it has to have that. Anybody watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So now I've got like Wingman in my mind. So you've got a Michael Jordan and you got to have a Scottie Pippen.
Yep.
And so you know, empathy is the Scottie Pippen to the Michael Jordan resilience. I mean, you can't have one without the other. And especially as we look to coming back to work, there is a variety of comfort levels. I mean, our leaders are going to have people who are determined to get back to work, that can't wait to be in the office, that need to be around people. And they're going to have people who are afraid, like legitimately afraid of being around people. Yep. How are you going to balance that? I mean, empathy has never played a bigger role, I don't think, in our cultures. And we know how important culture is. If we haven't seen, you know, the power and the strength of a strong culture, it's right now in this time of challenge. If you didn't have good culture going into this, you got a problem. So maintaining that good culture is really going to require our leaders to maybe step out of their comfort zones a little bit and be empathetic to this variety, you know, of feelings we're going to have coming back.
I think when they talk about resilience, you have to remember that the reason you have to be resilient is because there's something scary or there's something that you might have failed or had the potential to fail at. So that word in and of itself is tinged with like a connotation that is maybe we've been ignoring lately because we just are saying, come on, we have to be resilient. But when you put that empathy piece in it, that acknowledges the fact that, okay, we have to be resilient because something's a little scary right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like if you've got a strong leader who preaches resilience and resilience alone, it can be heard as buck up. You know, it can be heard as very black and white, and, you know, understanding that, you know, we all know we don't respond well to that. You know, our performance won't be as great as it could be. Our reaction certainly won't be. So having that level of, you've got to be strong and understand, you know, the different feelings and emotions and meet people where they are.
Yeah, let people bring their own version of resilience to the table, because just showing up is resilience in and of itself.
Well, and even in I mean, we break it down in 3 areas that the whole thing with becoming brilliantly resilient is that you first have to reset after something happens, then you're in your rise, and then you reveal your brilliance. And when we talk to folks, it's like, where are you at? You know, have you reset your mindset, or do we need to guide a little bit there? Are you in the rise? You know, everybody's in a different spot of it. That's even when guests come on the show, it's like, let's just, you know, we have the 3 areas, but let's see where they're at. Are they in a phase of revealing new brilliance, or it's just it? And I think this is a great time, everything that's happened, that people are starting to realize that you do have to, everyone's in a different place, and it switches by the day sometimes.
Yeah, you can be in multiple places at the same time with different things. It just depends on what you're dealing with at the moment. And we just happen to be, as we've said before, in a collective global sucker punch right now. So we're all in some stage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from leaders that you work with on this? I mean, are they aware of this?
You know, I think,
are we all working on it?
I think that I can answer that by saying that I'm hearing more of a word that you used before. You said something about grace. And whether people are calling it that or not, they are recognizing that we have to bring a measure of that to our communities, whether it's our communities, our families, the people we're working with or whatever. We have to allow everybody a measure of grace to be where they're at with this, and then hopefully we all move forward together. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm sensing from it.
I'm seeing a ton of, and maybe it's because I spend so much time in the rare disease field, because that's where my nonprofit is, but also in some other with the speaker groups I'm in. What I'm seeing a ton of is the leaders gathering the people and saying, where are you at? How are you feeling? What do we need to be working on? What can I do? And I don't know that I've seen it across the board in all of the leadership that I deal with, that there's so many, if not just about all, doing that.
Opening a conversation. Wow. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? Yeah, like opening a conversation. And I think that, gosh, if we're looking for a gift from this, the fact that people are asking anybody else, how are you? Where are you? Because they recognize that it has an impact on them. And again, if we're all helping each other to move forward, then guess what? We're all moving forward.
Are you having the same experience, Tiffany? Are you seeing that too?
You're so right. I am. But I'm hearing leaders who may have been fairly reluctant to have those conversations, having them. So to your point, it really is, again, maybe one of those gifts where it's becoming a vernacular to say, are you different ways? Some may be more clinical in how they, are doing, but that it matters. And I also think the environment, we're all talking I talked about Kat at the beginning. We're getting to know people on a level that really prompts empathy. I mean, I'm getting to know men and women, working with men and women. I'm seeing, the women doing the sides mom look at a child who's clearly misbehaving. I mean, the mute button is on, but I'm seeing a face. I'm never at work, but as a mom, I know as a mom, a way that I had for a dad who's at work, he is with children, and suddenly there's the other side to the human. So it just
looks like we lost her. Well, hopefully we'll get Tiffany back on again. Is she coming back in?
It is funny though, as she's getting that signal back, you see the people doing the side look. It is funny.
Yeah, we were losing you. You were breaking up a lot, but the part that Kristen and I both heard was the side look, and we were both kind of giving each other the side look because
it is funny.
Going in and out.
Oh gosh, am I back now? I hope
you're back.
Oh, good. But I mean,
you are back now.
You see the mute button go on, and then you see the face, and we all know it. And now I see this person, as a mom, somebody I
yes.
on a different, or a dad who's so comfortable with their child. We don't normally see him in that way. So it really, it opens the door to be empathetic. It makes it a lot easier to see people as humans when we're in these very personal environments and imperfect environments.
Yeah. The playing field has been completely leveled. Completely and utterly leveled at this point in the game. And that's not a bad thing. So, okay, so you said earlier when we were corresponding email wise and all that you had a couple of, first of all, we love tools and strategies, and you have a couple for your fear of failure types of thing. Do you have those that you can offer us? Because that's another thing that's just universal. I mean, who hasn't been afraid of falling on their face?
Absolutely. The cliff versus the curb. And I hope my signal stays strong here. I'll try to clip through these. But that I've noticed is that, fear really is like a petulant child. It needs attention. It needs attention. And I say that in that you need to recognize it. You need to own it. When you're feeling it, identify it and own it. And say, I get that. I get this scary. That's probably why I'm reluctant. Or at least it may be one of the reasons why I'm reluctant. Next up, I always say it's like a muscle and it needs to be exercised. the more you do something, a body in motion stays in motion. I think somebody who's not afraid of failing occasionally, the more that you attempt and are successful, the more you're going to attempt. I mean, knowing you're going to have some failures in there, but it's like a muscle. And I'll just share one great piece of wisdom, and everyone's going to want to get out their pens and pencils to write this down. Mm-hmm. So afraid of doing kind of a stretch opportunity for me. And I said to a gentleman who's a mentor of mine, I'd said, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to get to here, then I'm going to, basically I went to A to Z in about minutes. And he looked at me and he said, you know what? Here's what happens. I don't know if you know what happens if you do get to Z right away. The sun comes up tomorrow. I mean, like, basically, get over yourself. You're going to fail. Oh, guess what? The sun comes up tomorrow. And the more that you identify that things will be just fine, should you fail, what's the worst that can happen? Exercise that muscle. And then finally, I have a mantra, and I wish I could claim it. It's actually from a physical trainer that I follow online. And it's, I am, I can, I will, I do. I am, I can, I will, I do. And it starts off with I am. I think that's just the most important. But whenever I would feel at 3:30 in the morning, is kind of my witching hour, when I am just sure that I and my lack of experience and intelligence, everything else is going to be the one to bring this 14-year-old organization to a grinding halt. It's going to be me. It's going to be the complete and utter failure. Everything that I do is wrong, and it's going to be my fault. Well, then I just go to I am, I can, I will, I do. And I say that because I have figured out that I'm not going to know every answer to every problem. That doesn't mean they're not going to keep coming at me. I mean, that's one thing we know for sure. Those are going to come at me. But what I do know is that I can figure it out. And whatever it takes, I will figure it out. And then I'll do it. So while I can acknowledge I don't have all the answers, and there's going to be stuff coming my way that I don't know, but you know what? I know myself and my abilities. And if I need to sit up all night for a week and reach out to people I don't know to get the answers, I know that I'm okay doing that. So once you sort of had, I am, I can, I will, I do, that has really helped me. And that's basically, in a nutshell, just having confidence in your ability to face the unknown.
I love it.
But put that way, I mean, it's it's just so succinct and it's perfect. And I love that. One of the things that you said, talking about, fear needs attention and this whole idea of being afraid of what it's going to look like and everything. Well, when Kristen and I did our one live event that we had that turned into just one, even though it was supposed to be world domination tour, it turned into just one because then the world imploded. But we're doing this now anyway. But I can remember we were talking to the audience at one point, Kristen, and we were addressing that idea of being afraid and not doing things. And I said something to the effect of, well, are you afraid that you're going to look stupid? Is that why you're not going to do it? I said, guess what? You already looked stupid. We've already looked stupid at some point or another. Yeah. We've already done that. So move on. It didn't kill anybody. And we've already conquered. We've climbed that mountain. So, at the very least, or at the very worst, so you don't look smart, at least you look like you tried. And then you find out the answers. Kristen's big thing is put your hand up and ask.
Well, yeah. And I was so lucky to have very early on starting this now global nonprofit. What a blessing of the man that said to me, you don't know anything about this. You need genetics for dummies. And I was like, oh my God, it was my worst fear, right? That somebody would call me out on I'm not a scientist. But then I go, you know what? First of all, I was Googling, does that book exist? Because that sounds amazing.
Does it?
And then it does. There's a whole series.
Oh, stop.
There's like everything. And I think that we could host a live show every day for dummies. Because we just put it together. One. But when he said that was my worst fear, that somebody would call me out, that I was a third grade teacher, a mom, and what did I know about a scientific patient organization? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't. And then the next day, as you say, the sun came up and I dried my dumb tears and put on new mascara. And I was like, darn it, we need to build a team of people that can be Kristen's go-to, because there's no way I would be able to learn all of that. We never would have gotten anywhere. So I don't exactly think that man is the biggest blessing on the planet, but somebody saying that, and I say thank God it happened early, because had I have gone for another year, 2 years, God forbid, 10 years, trying to keep up and a persona of, I'm going to figure all this out and I'm not going to have anybody know that I don't know any of this, would have been horrific for the entire cause. It was better in the very beginning to have it slap me in the face and go, ooh, let's build a team of people. And the team catapulted us. He just could have been a little nicer.
No, but good for you for finding that, though. That takes strong character and courage and all of that. You dug deep for that.
Well, it's years later, having a lot of success, to be able to look back and say it was a good thing he said that when he did, and it didn't end up slowing us down, or, not then just closing up shop and deciding that I was going to maybe bag groceries at the Acme.
Yeah. So. And I'm betting there's stuff, though, even from that moment on, where you've had to, again, exercise that muscle and say, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. And sometimes I'm going to get it right and sometimes I'm not, but I know this for sure, I'm going to be fine.
I mean, taking a stage at a conference of 12,000 scientific researchers in the world, and I'm on that stage and I'm like, I just put it right out there. People, third grade teacher, we are bringing it way down, and it just, but when you keep exercising the muscle, like you said, I love that analogy. Because I feel like every time I step into that situation, if I look at it as, okay, here we go, another chance to flex, as opposed to, God dang it, here's another one of those things. No. It's that whole reset of your mind that makes you, it's just faster that you get to the finish line.
I agree. And there aren't really any shortcuts for that. I mean, it's just reps. It's just reps.
Yeah. And I think when you're at that low place, I mean, Kristen had it, I had it with my son and with his addiction issues. You almost realize there's a point at which you go, you know what did I got to lose? What exactly have I got to lose at this point? Things are so bad that we can only improve the situation, even if it's just with knowledge or just with one little thing that makes something better. But you have to get in the game. And I think sometimes people, they settle in that place of discomfort because they know it. But, at least for me, I think, and for Kristen too, we both just eventually made a decision that this is not going to define us. This is part of our story, but it's not going to define us. And I think you can make that decision at some point in the game. It allows you to open the door up to putting your hand up, to building your tribe, to doing all those things that help you become more resilient and more knowledgeable and successful in whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. And I have to feel at that moment that was fairly liberating.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When you just go, oh God, it can't get any worse than this. I just got to try something. I got to try something. And it's either going to work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when you're at that low place, you just keep at it. Because what's that quote that I always say about Winston Churchill? If you're going through hell, keep going. You don't stop there. Don't live there.
No.
Yeah.
You don't want to live there.
And then when you have those epic fails. See, I love them because then I go, oh, good. This is the new one that I get to measure everything else against. Oh, it's not as bad as when I blew that up.
And it makes for a great story.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They usually do make the best stories.
Yeah.
They
like,
do make the best
be a good
stories.
Keynote in about 5 years when I'm not like still shaking over it.
We always talk about how we love a good screw up around here. It just makes us feel really good when we hear somebody tell us about a great screw up, because we're like, yes. We're not alone.
No, you are so not alone. You have the courage to talk about it, which is heroic.
So you guys did go all virtual with your conference. It was the beginning of April, but you do a number of them throughout the year. So how are you making plans to stay virtual with them for the foreseeable future, or how's that working?
Yes, everything is virtual. Some are all virtual. Our next really big conference that was supposed to be 2 days in Des Moines, Iowa, is now just pulled back to 1 day, and it's a hybrid. So we've got, limited seating just to allow for social distancing. And then we've got a virtual live stream that'll be available too. So unlike the event in April, this one will be more of a hybrid, and we're hoping we'll be able to live stream the production from the venue, which is different than what we had to do when people were sheltering in place for the April conference.
Right.
Wow. Wow, that'll be cool to see. You guys are like trailblazers in the speaker world.
Who knew? Yeah, who knew?
Right. Figure it out as we go.
We
So
absolutely
Tiffany,
do.
tell everybody where we can find you, because I
Sure.
really want people to know that you guys are a wealth of resources for
Thank
leadership
you.
and for women, and you have so many programs. I just want people to take advantage of that.
Thank you very much. And so much of our programming is virtual. You'll see we've got workshops coming up actually next week, and then more scheduled for August and September that are typically just regional, but now everything's virtual. So your listeners can take advantage of that. Our website is WLCglobal.org, which is just short for Women Lead Change, WLCglobal.org. And you can find everything about our research, our networking groups, those workshops, and the conferences for sure too.
Great. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much. I urge everybody to check that out, because they are, again, a wealth of information and knowledge. And Tiffany, thanks so much for joining us today. We are so appreciative of your sharing your brilliance with us and your story. So thank you for joining us, and thanks everybody else for tuning in. And we will see you, like we see you every day, tomorrow. Again, tomorrow. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. This is it for Brilliantly Resilient Live. Bye, everybody.